Literary tourism. Sometimes literary tourism is easy. Cabby, Lord's Cricket Ground, please. £4.6, and there you are. Sometimes it's like my favorite Douglas Adams novel, The Long, Dark Tea Time of the Soul. Cabby, take me to Kate's Corner of the Park. What? The second type of literary tourism requires the skills of a holistic detective and relies on the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. Let me explain. In October, exactly 42 years ago, Douglas Adams published The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I didn't read it. I was 6. But by high school, I was a total Adams fan. The soon-to-be rich and famous author wrote about a zany cast of science fiction characters, irresponsible aliens, the last 2 survivors of a demolished Earth, and a manically depressed robot. They got into hundreds of pages of classic British comedy trouble. It was unlike anything I'd ever read before. The humor was Star Trek meets P.G. Wodehouse. The writing was Jane Austen meets Monty Python. I loved it and loved the absurd fact that the ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything was 42. Just 42. It made no sense. And despite hundreds of theories attributing meaning to it, Douglas Adams said he just looked out the window and picked it. But if you're an Adams fan, 42 is a touchstone. And turning 42 is your ultimate answer birthday. A friend told me once that she planned to travel for 40 days and 40 nights for her 40th birthday. I decided I would travel for 42 days for my ultimate answer birthday. I think I was 38 when I realized travel meant you had to pick a place to go and probably find something to do. That's when it came to me. I would go to 42 places in Douglas Adams novels. For 42 days, I would travel to London, to Cornwall, to Manchester, to Cambridge, to Dorset, to Austria, and then back home to Santa Barbara, which counted because it's a setting in Douglas Adams' 4th book. He lived here until his death in 2001. For my ultimate answer birthday, I would go on a 42 places pilgrimage. That's how I found myself in Regent's Park, London in 2015. The grass in the park was tripping height and marshy, hard to walk across even in sturdy travel boots. Leafless trees, stripped bare by the tail end of winter, arranged themselves along a murky canal. Carolyn, a friend who had immigrated to the UK years before, joined me for literary tourism. After my trip, I learned that's what it's called when you visit a real-world place from a fictional novel. Kate Schechter is the heroine of The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, and Kate's Corner of the Park is the secret, tiny bit of park she considers her own because she can see it from her window. I researched and set out to find it for my 42 places quest. Carolyn was there to humor me and take me to dinner afterwards at her favorite Ethiopian restaurant. I didn't really think I could exactly pinpoint Kate's Corner of the Park, but I had clues to share with Carolyn as we hiked around, catching up after a long absence. I had printed out maps. Kate's Primrose Hill neighborhood abutted this part of the park. According to the book, when Kate craned her neck to look out her window at her corner of the park, some of the intervening houses framed it, or rather, just failed totally to obscure it, and made the park very personal and private to Kate. So the window had to be almost obstructed. This was my idea of how to track down one specific flat in London, the ability to barely see it. Kate could See a patch of the park, a small corner patch with just a couple of plane trees standing in it. That's plane trees, Plane, but it might just as well have been spelled the other way. What does a plane tree look like? Carolyn asked, her eyes moving from leafless tree to leafless tree. My stomach lurched as if in an airplane encountering turbulence. I'd never considered the trees. I had planned to search for her window. I had maps. I had descriptions. I didn't have pictures of plane trees. Carolyn gave me a smirk and said, "You have internet, right?" We looked up the London plane tree on my iPad. Plane trees are planted all over London because they grow fast, give nice shade, and are disease resistant. In the US, we call them sycamores. Every tree in the park was a plane tree. What else did I know? If Kate could see from her window one small corner of the park, then from one small corner of the park, I should be able to see her window. But which window? Kate had gone to this corner of the park and walked around the invisible perimeter. She had even patted the plane trees in a proprietorial sort of way and watched the sun going down over London. There would be a view of sunset London from that corner of the park. We moved north and uphill, angling for a view. I narrated the passage where Kate returns home. On the way back, she made another small diversion to go and lean against the railings of the park. Railings! It wasn't raining on us yet, but it wasn't warm. We walked faster. We looked for railings. It was nearing sunset, perfect for trying to find a place with a view of London and the sunset. We closed in on Prince Albert Road, which had a sidewalk, and the park was edged with railings. On the map, only one road joined this part of the park at a strange angle. Dead-ended in a way that the circular and straight walking paths combined with the angled road, chopping the park up between them into what I would call corners. We made for the street with an odd, non-perpendicular jog. That street was Kate's street, if any street actually was. It would be a short walk to Kate's flat, if there was a Kate's flat to find. That's when I noticed the street lamps. Black columns topped with distinctive globe lights. "Thor! We have railings! We have street lamps!" I shouted at the barren plane trees. "What are you talking about?" Carolyn asked. I swiped at Kindle pages to read to her. Kate left the railings and started to head back towards her flat. She turned into her own road, and as she passed the first street lamp, it flickered and went out, leaving her in a small pool of darkness. Thor wants to freak her out a little. She's walking alone late at night, and street lamp after street lamp after street lamp goes dark just as she reaches it. I knew this meant we were close. Carolyn looked skeptical, so I said, "Kate tried to help the god Thor get to Oslo before she knew he was a god. Thor needs Kate to believe he's an immortal, still hanging around after 1,000 years, even though his power is weak. The god of light, well, lightning anyway. The street lamps, get it?" Carolyn chuckled. She was starting to get it. I'd scoured the book. I knew Kate's window had to be almost obscured, have a view of one corner of the park, near railings, lighted by street lamps with a view of the sunset behind the London skyline. And we still might never have found it if I hadn't been paying attention to the lamps. As I looked toward the crooked intersection, the street lamp flickered and went out. A sign from Thor! It was happening to us, just like it had happened to Kate. Or, most likely, just like it had happened to Douglas Adams. Corners, plane trees, railings, street lamps. I felt like a pilot, buffeted by heavy weather, runway in sight, trying to keep my airplane from going out of control. The fictional world and the real one were both hovering, coming closer together. That's when I saw the name of the building straight ahead. Oslo Court. Oslo Court? Just the sort of oddly named place that might have inspired Douglas Adams to write a novel about Norse gods. The building was a stack of brick flats with two wings, one side onto the park and another barely visible behind it. Each flat had cantilevered blocks jutting out. Some had white-trimmed balconies, and others just one window. My heart, the heart of a devoted book lover, flew up to that window. A window I knew with absolute conviction looked down on Kate's corner of the park. I had found a fictional place described in a novel, and it was real. Douglas Adams probably stood right here. I was a true literary tourist. I checked off another of the 42 places on my list. We watched the sun set behind the London skyline. It got dark. Carolyn took me to her favorite Ethiopian restaurant, the one she'd been going to for years. When we arrived, she walked right in. I stood in the street, gaping at the door. "What is it?" she said. "Look at the address. Caledonian Road, number 42.